And let's talk about you. Where did it all start for you? How long have you been kind of riding around horses, grooming?
I've been grooming since I left school at 17.
Mm.
Had a wanderlust and wanted to travel and take care of horses, so I thought a job with show jumpers would be a really good idea. I got to do both of those things, travel and take care of horses and learn at the same time, and I ended up working in America for quite a while. And little did I know that all that experience back then would then hold me in good stead for taking care of the most famous dressage horse in the world, as it happened when started looking after Vallegro.
And how did you change from jumpers to dressage? Was that a kind of conscious change? Was it just the opportunity that came up?
Yeah, no, it just sort of happened over the years. I met Carl way back in 1990 at the first World Games in Stockholm, the first time they had all the games together. And a friend of mine was grooming for him then, and I met him then. And a couple of times over the years, he's asked me to go and work for him. And then finally in 2010, when Bellegra and Utopia were starting to do a lot of travelling, he said, would I go and work for him? And I was supposed to do a couple of shows back then, and then the rest is history, as
And
they say.
is it different working for jumpers or dressage? Because the jumping riders might have like 6 horses and you're getting everything ready for those. And
Yeah, and they're on the road constantly, whereas we used to have a bit more of a gap in between the shows with the dressage horses, and the jumpers are on the road constantly, and they're flying every month somewhere else, and it's massive now with the Global Champion Tour. There's a lot of money in it, and they're travelling all over the world. And it's a massive job being a jumping groom.
So let's talk about Vallegro. You've mentioned this horse already. Obviously, it's a horse that everyone knows, everyone loves. What's your kind of first memory of that horse?
I remember seeing him as a young horse, Carl and Charlotte having him in the young horse class. I remember seeing him here at the Nationals, and everyone talking about him. And then when he started to travel internationally, and Carl asked me if I would take him to some shows. And I remember I did his very first international Grand Prix down in the south of France, and he was just such a dude, and he was so great to take care of, and he was such a character, and he was just very charismatic too. Everyone loved him, and he was so easy to take care of and everything, and it all just sort of went from there, really.
Was there a point that you remember that you thought this isn't just a nice young horse that's going to do quite well, but this is actually like a world-class superstar that everyone's going to know?
Yeah, it was that first show down in the south of France, and Charlotte was pretty inexperienced, and the horse was inexperienced, and they both pulled it off, and they did a really good test, and everyone was talking about him, and everyone on the showground came to watch him, and Carl and I were stood by the side of the ring, and like, I think we might be in trouble here.
And from there, you've been to many championships with that horse and with many other horses as well. What's it like preparing for a big games, in your role, like as a groom?
It's a real ongoing thing, like the major championships. For about the past 12 years, Carl and Charlotte have had to plan their whole year around getting the horses to be at peak fitness and training, ready for the championships, sort of August, September time. So it started way back in the winter time before, and traveling to the big championships, sort of like if we're flying across the world, say to Tryon for the World Games or to Rio for the Olympics, you have to start planning way in advance, getting everything in place with all the different regulations for the countries, all the different feeds and things. You have to have that all bonded and tested. Like Brazil, they had certain foodstuffs that couldn't be taken into the country, and sort of Australia and South America don't allow anything wooden that's not treated to be taken into the country. So you have to know all about that sort of stuff well in advance, and it takes sort of months of preparing and getting to know all the rules and regulations.
I mean, you've had such a great life as a groom, traveling to all these major shows around the world. If you could go back, would you do it all again?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been incredible, and it's been a massive experience, especially traveling with Vallegro and all the other horses, and seeing them come on, from young horses. Carl and Charlotte have trained lots of horses up to Grand Prix, up to championship level between the pair of them, and it's amazing to see that. see them start here in the young horse classes and then see them progress and then get to take them around the world and represent the country and win medals. It's the most amazing achievement.
And grooms are such a huge part of our sport, we just couldn't do it without it. The riders are a tiny cog compared to the massive village. But when grooms start off, you know, they're working long hours for no money. What advice would you give for people that want to obviously climb the ranks and make it like a proper profession, which is, and you're probably one of the first that made it a proper profession, I would think.
Well, yeah, there's me and Jackie Potts and Mark Beaver now are sort of, we're representing the British Grooms Association. Luckily that's come on now to back the grooms.
Yeah.
And it is one of the most important jobs, I think, in the industry, because without the care of the horses, there won't be, you know, any medals or competitions. So you have to be dedicated, and you have to want to learn, and you have to be prepared to work really hard and spend the time, get to know the horses, and be passionate about the job. And it is getting much better. There is much more support with the British Grooms Association and the International Grooms Association now. So the grooms that are travelling abroad and are doing it big time all over the world are getting support and backing. You know, we're having talks at the moment with the IGA and the FVI about making sure that the grooms are accommodated properly for Paris next year, because it's so important.
Yeah, because in the past, I mean, the riders always get the 5-star hotels, and sometimes the grooms end up in pretty dodgy places, thinking like the World Equestrian Games when it was out in Tryon. The grooms' accommodation there wasn't the best. So I think it's great that there is something now that's trying to push that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have to be ready beforehand. This is why we're in talks with them now, so that it's all in place before the grooms start arriving, because we'll arrive first before anyone else.
So for people out there that want to be a groom, that want to spend their life taking care of horses, what's the best way to start? Would you advise college? Would you advise finding a rider and becoming an apprentice? What's the...
Yeah, there's all sorts of things now. I mean, the colleges do a really good job. Carl's yard is near Hartbury, and we've and actually Fran, who's here looking after Charlotte's horses, she started at Hartbury, and then she did work placement with us. And then she worked for us for a while, and then she went to work for Tom McEwen, and she's now freelance, and she's helping out, and she's doing some more of the shows so that I can take a bit of a break. And it's worked really, really well. So there's several different ways. I mean, it's good to try and get into the big yards and get experience, and you can also do it through the colleges as well.
And you've kind of taken a step back from full-time grooming for Carl and Charlotte. What was it that led to that decision, and what have you been up to?
Well, you know, I've got stuff of my own. I've got my own ponies and stuff that I take care of on show, and it'd been like 12 years full on, you know, non-stop going to shows. Charlotte was having the baby, so things were a little bit quieter at home. So I thought it was an ideal moment for me to just take a little bit step backwards and do some other stuff. And I've been doing some work with some of our sponsors, doing some consultation work. You know, the brands that support Carl and Charlotte have been very supportive of the grooms. So I'm doing some work with the BJ and the IJ and NAF and Saracen, and with Robert Lemieux on branding and products, and they're very appreciative of the fact that they need input from someone like me that's been in the industry and knows about the products and what's good and what's needs improving, which is essential in this business to stay on top of the products.
You should really write a book, because, you know, stories from being on the road and tips along the way. I think it would be a bestseller.
Actually, we have started doing a book.
Okay.
John Stroud, the photographer for BAF, he's published several books, and he's in the process of starting to do a book with me. And we're probably going to do 2 books. So one about life as a groom, and then one about horse management as well. So it's in the process, but it's trying to find the time to do it. We started doing it, and then we realised there's a lot of information that we can put in the book, so it's going to take a bit longer than we thought it would.
And I'm sure there's a few stories that you can't put in there. Are there any funny stories from kind of being on the road that you could tell us? Is there any kind of funny story that sticks out? Because there's always stuff happening when you're on the road.
Blimey, I'm sure
Put you
there
on
are
the spot here.
Yeah, that's really put me on the spot. Yeah, no, I can't really think of anything offhand, but yeah, I'm sure I can think of something to put in the book.
Well, there'll be lots in there, but you know, you're an inspiration to grooms, and what you've achieved over the years is fantastic. So thanks very much for coming to join us.
Thank you very much.
And we've got more coming from the Fan Zone over the next few days, so stay tuned to Facebook, and if you're on site, come back and join us. Keep an eye on the scoreboards here with all the times. Another couple of guests to come today, and of course throughout the weekend as well.